On a cool spring evening in North Carolina, a car crash kills a renowned coin collector. He's carrying the crown jewel of his collection. But is it really one of the rarest and most valuable coins in the world? Or a clever fake?
I just imagine she's sitting there saying to me, "They say I'm not real. What do you think?"
Half a century passes before the man's heirs and the public learn the truth about his precious cargo.
We sat there on pins and needles, and then the numbers start climbing.
I'm Jamie Colby. Today, I'm in picturesque Roanoke, Virginia. The name Roanoke is believed to come from an Algonquin word that means shell money, which is very appropriate to the story of this strange inheritance.
My name is Ryan Givens. In 1992, my mother, Melva Givens, died at the age of 79. As executor of her estate, I found a lockbox in her closet which contained a strange envelope.
Ryan, this is the box.
This is the box that she kept it in her bedroom closet. And she kept it, along with other things, in this envelope right here.
So it says this is a changed date and what else does it? Not real?
Not the real one.
Changed date, not real, 1913. Melva's terse note reflects what she'd been told about the coin inside, that it's a clever fake of one of the rarest and most valuable coins ever minted, the 1913 Liberty Head 5-cent piece. Coin expert and auctioneer Paul Montgomery wrote a book about the nickels.
From 1883 to 1912, the Liberty Head nickel was the design that the U.S. was using for commerce. It was in 1912 that they made the decision to move on to the next design, which was the Buffalo nickel. At the end of 1912, they really should have stopped making Liberty nickels. Instead, somebody made 5 before the dies were destroyed.
The 5 nickels are legal tender, but the U.S. Treasury has no record of them.
Samuel Brown was a Mint employee at the time when the coins were transitioned from the Liberty Head nickel to the Buffalo nickel. There's a lot of speculation that Sam Brown was the one that actually had them made and put them away.
5 specimens make their first appearance in Chicago at a 1920 convention. The seller, surprise, surprise, Samuel Brown.
It was 7 years later, the statute of limitations had passed for any crime that might have been committed, and so all of a sudden there is a huge story that 5 coins that had never existed were now going to be at the Chicago Coin Club show.
4 years later, all 5 coins are purchased by a single wealthy collector for $2,000. It's not until the early 1940s in St. Louis that the set of 5 nickels is sold in public again. Egypt's King Farouk scoops one up for his collection, and the following year, so does a prominent coin collector from Roanoke, Virginia, Ryan Givens' uncle, George Walton. Enter the enigmatic benefactor of our strange inheritance.
Ryan, tell me more about Uncle George.
I like to refer to him as a professional collector. He had a pretty decent stamp collection. He had books, almanacs, but coins were his main thing.
Truth be told, Ryan doesn't know his Uncle George well, and neither, it seems, does anyone else. He's a lifelong bachelor and successful estate appraiser, a job that keeps him constantly on the move. He lives in a series of hotels, from North Carolina to Florida. Exactly how Walton came to acquire his 1913 nickel is equally murky. The most oft-told story is that in 1946, he trades $3,750 worth of gold for the rare nickel. The seller, the story goes, may or may not be an heir to the Camel cigarette fortune.
It was said a member of the tobacco Reynolds family, so we can assume that it may have been the R.J. Reynolds.
However he acquires it, the 1913 nickel gives Walton a special status on the coin show circuit.
It was a calling card of sorts, because if you were one of the owners of a 1913 nickel, you were an important collector.
Walton plays the role of swaggering, inscrutable collector to the hilt. Once he's seen nonchalantly flipping his famous nickel. Wasn't he worried about scratching it? His reply, no, because it's a fake.
The reason being, since it's a valuable coin, he used it for display rather than the real one.
He promises to display the real one at a show in Wilson, North Carolina, where he's a headliner. With about $250,000 worth of rare coins, he sets out on the drive from Roanoke to Wilson.
Nowadays, you'd be in some sort of, like, armored truck.
That's how things were back then. You would never see that today. But Wilson was having their first show, so it was going to be a big deal.
It's March 9th, 1962.
He was almost within the town limits when he was hit by a lady that was driving a car. Apparently, she had been drinking. He was killed instantly.
George Walton was 55 years old. He dies without a will, so his siblings name a bank in Roanoke to act as his executor.
What was the process?
The bank sent letters to every bank that they knew in North Carolina and Virginia and said, do you have anything there that belongs to George Walton?
Once all his collections are reassembled and cataloged, the family gets some shocking news that also stuns coin aficionados around the world. George Walton's 1913 Liberty nickel is declared a fake.
The nickel had no value. It was just a piece of junk.
A piece of junk? Could it be? That's next.
And now for our Strange Inheritance quiz question. Name the first woman whose portrait appeared on U.S. currency. Martha Washington, Sacagawea, or Susan B. Anthony. The answer in a moment. So, who was the first woman to have her portrait appear on U.S. currency? It's A, Martha Washington, who appeared on the $1 silver certificate in 1886.
On his way to a North Carolina coin show in March 1962, eccentric coin collector George Walton dies in a car crash. It's front page news in the coin world.
George Walton was a respected numismatist. He put together one of the greatest collections of all time.
The executor calls in Stax, a New York City auction house, to appraise George's coin collection.
So Stax sent a man to evaluate and catalog all the coins. It took approximately 2 to 3 weeks.
How much did the family get for what was sold?
Total came to over $850,000. It set a record for an individual collection.
It would have been even more, maybe $60,000 more, if not for the stunning pronouncement that Walton's prize 1913 nickel is a phony. Because the 3 in 1913 is unlike any font used by the U.S. Mint, Stax concludes the date has been altered.
There were so many altered dates out there that it wasn't difficult to take another Liberty Head coin, such as a 1910, and alter the 0 to make it look like a 3.
In fact, Walton has a number of suspect currencies in his collection. So many that the bank feels it needs to notify the Secret Service.
The Secret Service came and took some of the items that he had because they were either counterfeit, altered, or illegal to own.
Stax declared the nickel a fake,
Right.
but the Secret Service said, keep it, it's okay?
It was not totally illegal to have an altered date, but if you tried to sell it to someone, that was illegal.
The Secret Service returns the nickel, but warns the family never to try to pass it off as the real McCoy. In the meantime, George Walton's reputation as an esteemed coin collector takes a posthumous beating.
It was just a piece of junk, so it was put in with the odds and ends. So my mom picked out the 1913. She was born in 1913, so that could have been a reason. My other thought was she wanted it put away permanently, and that's what she did.
To protect his reputation?
Right. In other words, try to keep it from getting any worse.
Melva Givens never wavers in her belief that her brother George had the real nickel somewhere in his vast coin collection. But she accepts that the one in her closet really is a fake.
She had some coin magazines, newspaper articles that kind of kept up with other 1913s. So she knew he had it, she just couldn't find it.
She's not the only one who's looking. Everyone in coin collecting circles is wondering where the vanished nickel has gone. Some assume it must still be by the side of the road where Walton crashed and show up at that spot with metal detectors. Over the decades, the nickel enters into American cultural lore. It's even the subject of TV episodes on Hawaii Five-0 and the Hardy Boys. Then, in 1992, Melva passes away at the age of 79.
I was executor of her estate, so it was up to me, of course, to go through what she had and split things up between my brother and my sisters. She had a box of items in her closet, and I got the box out. The nickel was there.
Ryan takes the envelope with the nickel in it and places it on his nightstand.
I used to look at it late at night, and one time I just imagined she's sitting there saying to me, "They say I'm not real. What do you think?"
With each passing year, the 1913 Liberty legend grows, and so does the value of the 4 confirmed specimens. In 1996, one becomes the first coin to sell for over $1 million. Then, in April 2003, a cub reporter on a local feature assignment sparks the most stunning turn of events ever in the coin world. Everything the experts thought they knew about the most famous coin in the world was wrong.
I wasn't looking to find the $1 million nickel. I was looking to tell a good story.
That's next on Strange Inheritance.
For this Strange Inheritance quiz question, you might want to get up close to your television set. One of the coins you're looking at is a fake 1913 Liberty nickel. The other is genuine. Can you tell which is the real one? Hint, the numbers tell the story. Take one more look. Can you tell which is the real 1913 Liberty Head nickel? It's B. Stay tuned to find out why.
One of the 5 super rare 1913 Liberty Head nickels has been missing for decades, ever since George Walton's was declared a fake after his death in a car crash in 1962. 41 years later, in 2003, Paul Montgomery's company is trying to come up with a way to raise excitement for a coin show that summer in Baltimore.
Our publicist remembered that it was the 90th anniversary of the making of the 1913 nickel. We thought it would be a nice thing to have a reunion for all the coins.
That prompts another brainstorm. What about a $1 million reward for that 5th nickel, regardless of the condition it was in?
I said, well, sure. I guess I'd pay $1 million even if it had a hole in it.
The press picks up on the story, and within days, a reader of the Roanoke Times calls the newsroom, suggesting a local angle.
Somebody said he knew George Walton when he lived in Roanoke. We had our research librarian at the Roanoke Times start digging up information on Mr. Walton's relatives.
Adam's research leads him to Ryan Givens.
Ryan knew about the nickel. He didn't know about the $1 million reward.
Adam's pursuit of a good story sets in motion a series of extraordinary events.
Mason Adams also contacted the editor of Coin World. She asked him if he knew where the altered date coin was. So she finally got in contact with me and said, we'd like to have that altered date coin on display in Baltimore.
Ryan's uninterested in dredging up the bogus Walton nickel tale. But that 90-year-old lady is calling out to him again.
So I asked my brother and my sisters if it was okay to take it up there, and they said fine with them.
Wow, did you think to yourself, what if it's real?
You always wondered, but I wanted more to find it was real for Uncle George, because it was basically his reputation.
On July 30th, 2003, he drives from Roanoke, Virginia to Baltimore and meets with his siblings to show Paul Montgomery the nickel.
I was ready to tell them that their coin wasn't genuine, but at the same time, you always want to meet someone that has history in the business.
But once he has the coin in his hand, Paul Montgomery does a double take. He was expecting to see a fake, but this doesn't look like a fake. Paul invites Jeff Garrett, a numismatist with a pedigree as solid as his own, and 4 other experts to assess the nickel's authenticity.
He said, I think we found the coin. And I was like, wow, that's almost like goosebump stuff, you know?
They were the coin experts. And you try to get some indication from their expression as to whether it's real or not. But they didn't really show any, so I was a little nervous.
This convention holds an unprecedented opportunity that Stack's auction house didn't have in 1963 to compare George Walton's nickel with the 4 others that had already been authenticated.
We spent 45 minutes talking about the different nuances of the coin.
The experts home in on that strange 3. What shocks them is that it's identical on all 5 coins.
Took a long time, but finally, Paul called us over and they had all decided that it was real.
The very defect that caused Stacks to declare Walton's nickel phony proves 4 decades later that it has to be real. What's more, its mint condition and incredible story make it worth much more than the $1 million bounty Montgomery was offering.
I am the only dealer in the history of our industry that has gotten to tell a family who thought they had nothing that they indeed had millions of dollars. And that is the best thing that happened to me in my career.
The Givens are newly minted millionaires.
It was almost like having a lottery ticket.
All they need to do is cash in, but not so fast. That's next on Strange Inheritance.
Now, back to Strange Inheritance.
In July 2003, Ryan Givens and his siblings find out that the strange inheritance they thought was fake is real, and they can cash in for millions.
It was very clear to me that this was a family that was not interested in selling the coin. Ryan will tell you he would much rather have the coin because he loved having it in the family.
They don't have the money to insure the coin, so they loan it to the American Numismatic Association, which displays it at its museum in Colorado Springs. Then, in 2013, the Liberty Head Nickel's 100th birthday is approaching.
We start to realize, hey, we're not getting any younger. We knew we'd have to sell it, and it was part of my mom's estate, so any one of us couldn't hold on to it.
Paul Montgomery introduces the Givens to Greg Rohan, CEO of Heritage Auctions, the world's largest coin auction house.
The 1913 nickel is arguably one of the most famous coins there is. So for the opportunity to handle one is like a paintings collector getting the Mona Lisa.
$1,000 bill. I got
Heritage sets a date of April 25th, 2013 in Chicago. Fitting, since that's where the 5 Liberty Head nickels were first revealed back in 1920.
The auction shut down and said, now we're going to prepare for this very, very special offering. So we sat there on pins and needles, and then the numbers started climbing.
180, now 190, bid 190,000.
Then Jeff Garrett, one of the experts who helped authenticate the nickel in 2003, decides to place his own bid with another collector, Larry Lee.
I was sitting in the audience, and I sent a text to Larry. I said, Larry, this coin's going to sell in about 15 minutes. I said, last chance to bid. And kind of almost half jokingly. And he calls me. He says, what do you think it'll bring? And I bid 2.1.
Jeff and Larry bid against another collector as the price rises by $100,000 each bid. Jeff and Larry win the auction. How much did they pay for the nickel?
The total price on it came to $3.2 million.
It was almost a surreal experience, really, because from a personal perspective, it was kind of like my Everest. It was like a chance to handle one of the few great coins in numismatics.
Larry Lee, now the nickel's sole owner, puts it on display at this coin shop in Panama City, Florida. The Givens siblings split the net proceeds 4 ways and donate $100,000 to the American Numismatic Association in honor of Uncle George.
Any regret in not waiting to sell it for more money?
If you hold on to it, it'll keep growing and growing, but how long do you think you're going to live to enjoy it?
Although the mystery of the Walton nickel is solved, George himself made noises about knowing of a 6th 1913 Liberty Head nickel out there somewhere. In fact, we can't know for sure how many 1913 Liberties were minted. Think about that if you inherit some of Grandpa's old stuff. There could be gold in those drawers or sofa cushions. I'm Jamie Colby for Strange Inheritance, and remember, you can't take it with you.
Do you have a strange inheritance story you'd like to share with us? We'd love to hear it. Send me an email or go to our website, strangeinheritance.com.